As my last kind of topic area to discuss, and it follows on nicely from this idea of, the AI scientist and replacing, kind of what it means to be human. I loved the example you made there, kind of like Rosalind Franklin or, a math guru being able to see things that, only a handful of people on the planet out of billions would be able to see anyway. And so there is something actually kind of reassuring in that, okay, this is just another set of brains that will be doing things that we can't understand. That is cool, but it might make people feel uncomfortable if those brains can be much cheaper and much more effective than maybe what we're used to doing day to day. And we probably, people listening to this podcast, they are probably amongst, they're probably kind of around the 99th percentile of people who are adapting to new shifts on the planet. We're trying to stay abreast of all these technological changes. How can I be using LLMs like you just described as a scientist to be coming up with new ideas? Um, and of course, you mentioned already earlier in the episode tools like Claude or GitHub Copilot that we can be using to augment ourselves as software composers. So those kinds of tools are out there, but it doesn't seem like we're too far off from a lot of what software engineers, data scientists, AI engineers do being replaced completely by machines. And part of what makes us so susceptible in our career is that a lot of what we do could be done remotely. And in fact, since the pandemic, a lot of people have at least some days of the week. If you work in a situation where keyboard and microphone inputs and outputs are all you need to be doing your job, that is an easier kind of role to disintermediate with an AI system than if you are washing bed sores off of comatose patients in a hospital. If you're that's something you can't do remotely. Um, so you have been an investor in more than 50 tech startups since 1999. You no doubt have interesting insights into where technology is heading, but also where work is heading. So, with the automation of many jobs on the horizon due to technological advancements, what are your thoughts on the future of work? And maybe where is the solid ground that our listeners can find, in terms of skills they could be developing or career shifts they can be making to hopefully continue to have a job in the decades to come?
I don't think there's any solid ground. And I also understand why people feel apprehensive. You should feel apprehensive. You should go off if you haven't had your holy shit, oh shit moment with LLMs where you sit and spend 2 or 3 days and throw the hardest problems you can at them and you get really impressed with what they can do. You need to go off and do that and go through your mini existential crisis and come out the other side. Um, we already live in a world where jobs change really frequently. 53% of Gen Zs want to be influencers. When I launched that company that had hired a data scientist back in 2010, we were the first influencer ranking, sorry about this, platform on just Twitter at the time in the world. And now 53% of people want to be influencers. It's only been 14 years. An economist called David Autor looked at about 80 years of US employment data, and he points out that 60% of jobs, today's jobs, didn't exist in 1940, and they require expertise that didn't exist at all during that time. In my first job, I worked at the Guardian newspaper, but I was also the Guardian's first load balancer. So a lot of you will use something called ELB, Elastic Load Balance, on Amazon. In 1996, the Guardian used my right hand. We had 3 servers and two Ethernet connections, and as one would get its memory leak and crash out, I would pull the Ethernet cable out and plug it into the one that had just rebooted, and then 10 minutes later I would do it for the next, round robin that during the peak times during the day. So all sorts of new jobs get created during this time. And what we can do is we can look at what's happened over the last 30 or 40 years. There's been a huge amount of middle class job growth, right? Jobs constructed in the types of things you were talking about. We work remotely, we work behind a desk, and at the same time, a lot of lower paying service sector jobs that have been created, and that creates a lot of tension. So we should bear that in mind. I think the second thing we need to bear in mind is that people don't really know where this ends, it's very hard to predict the third, fourth, fifth bounce of the ball. You can look back at history and look at people's emotional responses, and that may give you some insight. My sense right now is that the way my work has changed and the way that my team's work has changed is that everybody is more boss-like, right? Everybody has to set goals and objectives to teams that are made up of one or more AI systems. And you have to be better at having those boss-like skills. My domain knowledge and my experience and judgment gives me some advantages, in that. So, in a sense, look, there's no solid ground. We really don't know how fast this technology will develop. We really don't know what will exactly happen to the job market. We can expect a large number, maybe the vast majority of jobs to change. We can expect new jobs to be created, and we can expect some jobs to go away. And the way to prepare for that is ultimately to skill up. And by skilling up, you actually put yourself in a position where you can somewhat define your future a little bit. And I say that just in the sense of being really, really frank and honest about where we are. I mean, people don't know. There's increasingly good research coming out, but that will still be only limited. And maybe in 20 years we will know. But even then, perhaps we're still asking the question.